Amazing. Thank you. To mark the 10th year of this show and the end of this decade, we take great pleasure in announcing the Artists of the Decade. Here are just some of the most successful artists of the 90s.
Michael Bolton. Tony Braxton. Garth Brooks. Mariah Carey. Celine Dion. Whitney Houston. Janet Jackson. Madonna.
Hey, if you're not
Shania Twain.
Here's a clue. Billboard's Artist of the Decade holds the record for most weeks one single has ever held the #1 spot. Here's another clue. Except for Elvis and the Beatles, this person has more #1 hits than any other artist in history. This truly international artist who transcends all categories wrote their first single at age 4, their first platinum album at age 18, and has gone platinum in 33 countries. And according to Haynes, has the best legs in the business. Woo! Here is a Billboard Artist of the Decade. My granddaughter, my goddaughter, she's my everything. She just called me and said, "Godmother, help me." I don't have to help you. Miss Mariah Carey, you're all up. The legendary Mariah Carey. I love you. Am I straight? You good? Yes.
You good?
She's ready.
Everyone needs a fairy godmother to help them out, and this is an angel right here. Thank you, Patti LaBelle. I love you. Thank you. Oh. Woo! Woo! This is all very surreal to me because it seems like not so long ago that I was a kid in high school with a demo tape and a lot of determination and just really the desire to hear my songs on the radio. I mean, I didn't know about platinum or gold records or like what you had to sell to get them. I mean, I didn't even know about the Billboard charts. Sorry, but I didn't know. And then it all happened so fast, and it's like my life became public. I lived in the recording studio, writing and singing, and that's how I made so many records in so little time, pretty much having no life. But I'd like to thank my mom for inspiring me and thank Don Einer and all my Columbia Records family for so much support. And I'd like to thank all the amazingly dedicated Sony people around the world. And obviously, I have to thank Tommy Mottola for his support, specifically during the beginning of my career. And I have to thank everyone at Maroon Entertainment for their unparalleled dedication. I've been traveling around the world, right? You know, promoting Rainbow, my new album. And it's kind of like my message of hope for the new millennium. And it's been so moving to see so many devoted fans in continents where we don't even speak the same language, where people are singing back the lyrics to me that I wrote. And that means so much to me because I put all of myself into my music. So as a writer and as a producer, I thank you. And I'm so grateful to God to have overcome so many obstacles as a multiracial person with a very dysfunctional history until recently. I am not Cinderella. My life has not been a fairy tale. Forget the image, forget the ensembles, forget the rumors, forget the short skirts, big hair, whatever. I owe this to the fans, and I will never forget you. So I want to accept this award on behalf of all of you. You've come a long way, and I feel like I'm just getting started. Because as an artist, and most importantly, as a person, I am genuinely happy and finally free to be who I really am. Thank you.
The number one spot on the Billboard Hot 100 had a near permanent resident in the 1990s. That was Mariah Carey. The first decade of her career yielded a ludicrous 16 number one singles from her first 7 albums, 4 of which were number one albums. At the end of 1999, Mariah Carey had a number one single for every year since her debut in 1990. That's a number one hit every single year for 9 years. 1991 alone yielded 3 of those, and that was only her second year in the business. As Y2K rapidly approached, one could only imagine the career heights that awaited Mariah in the new millennium. And she definitely reached those heights, although Mariah wouldn't quite make her mark on the 2000s until 2005 with a little album titled The Emancipation of Mimi. And in the interim period between her 1990s reign and her 2005 revival, Mariah Carey would endure perhaps one of the most vertical and baffling drops in popularity for a pop star in the last 25 years. A woman who showered the 1990s with 16 smash hit classics was about to not only be marked as the laughingstock of the industry, but betrayed by both the media and her own record labels.
This is like, I wrote a little speech. I usually just wing it, but tonight I said, I gotta write something down before I forget. Okay, I have to say, first of all, this is a completely and totally bizarre experience for me to be receiving the award for Artist of the Millennium. Hello. I mean, it's the same award that Michael Jackson is receiving. I mean, he's been making number one records prior to my birth. He's truly a legend, and I just feel blessed to be here tonight. The funny thing is, I still actually feel like that little girl living on a mattress on the floor, making a demo tape and just trying to get heard. And there's a lot of those people out there. So everybody out there, keep your head up. If you're working towards a dream, don't give up and don't stop. Oh, now she's doing the hip hop thing.
Yeah,
It's not like that at all. It's just that now
she's just trying to make sure she's with it.
Yeah, not at all. It's just that, I mean, if I'm going to do an up-tempo, I want it to be hot. I don't want it to be some boring, thing that I don't like. I mean, so I'd rather, what I tried to do with this album is incorporate the ballads with the songs that are more, the up-tempo records, and use interludes to kind of segue between them so that you wouldn't feel this jolting thing, so I mean, I told you about the cover of Against All Odds. It's pretty hard to go from a record with Missy Elliott and Brat that's a loop of a Snoop Dogg record to Against All Odds. But because working with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who are really genius at figuring out interludes, and we really had a great musical partnership, we kind of figured out how to make these transitional pieces that would make the album work. And I think sequencing this album was really important. And I tried to kind of tell a story in the sequencing and make it all kind of make sense.
When you dream now about the future, what do you dream about? When you fantasize about, when obviously acting is part of it, because it's an extension.
Yes.
So it won't just say singer, it'll say singer, songwriter, musician, producer, actress.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
But do you think of other musical, where are you going musically?
Well,
because you're all of a sudden performing and associating yourself with a rather extraordinary group of people in terms of music today.
Right. Well, I mean, it's funny because working with artists that I love, that I'm inspired by too. I mean, I've worked with Brat a number of times. Missy and I have worked together. This is the first time I worked with Jay-Z and also Snoop. And that's the thing that people don't realize. It's like, we're all musicians. We're all influenced by each other's work. So it's not such a stretch. And people, often like a rapper will have 5 guest rappers on their album or 4 guest vocalists. It's not a big deal in R&B or in hip hop. It's just in the pop world, people don't understand that it's, I mean, I don't listen to pop radio. I really don't. I listen to older music, like my favorite classics, or I'll listen to
like what?
Like Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, Minnie Riperton, songs that I grew up with, or hip hop radio, or whatever's hot. So it's like where I feel I'm going musically, actually my next project is the soundtrack for All That Glitters, which is set in the 80s. It's set in 1981. So hopefully I'm going to be working with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and we're going to be executive producing it together. And I spoke to Rick James. I'm going to try to make it really like a retro kind of 80s album, which is actually works with what's going on musically today because everybody's sampling records from the 80s anyway. So, I mean, that's my next project musically.
With only one album left to fulfill her contract with Sony, and with a burning desire to separate herself from the label still headed by her ex-husband, Tommy Mottola, Mariah went into overdrive. She completed the Rainbow album in just 3 months in mid-1999, making it the unofficial conclusion to her legendary late 90s trilogy, which began with Daydream in 1995 and Butterfly in 1997. With Rainbow, Mariah leaned into the R&B and hip-hop influences that were becoming more central to her sound. The album produced 2 #1 hits, Heartbreaker and Thank God I Found You, while Against All Odds, Take a Look at Me Now topped the UK charts. Rainbow debuted at #2 on the Billboard 200 and gave her the highest first-week sales of her career at the time. But behind the scenes, things were ugly. Her already tense relationship with Columbia Records grew increasingly hostile. The label deliberately sabotaged her, refusing to promote later singles and essentially leaving her to push her own music. At one point, she even had to ask fans via her website to request her songs on the radio because the label simply wouldn't. And while it made no sense for Columbia to undercut one of their biggest artists, since her success was their success, the reality was that Tommy Mottola wanted Mariah gone. Despite the drama, she was still on top of the world. She received Billboard's Artist of the Decade award and was crowned best-selling pop female artist of the millennium at the World Music Awards. These were major honors, ones that recognized Mariah's dominance throughout the 90s, and in retrospect, they're even more significant considering how quickly the industry would turn against her in just a few short years. Between Butterfly and Rainbow, Mariah had begun working on a film and soundtrack titled All That Glitters. However, Columbia had different plans. They wanted a greatest hits album released in time for the holiday season in 1998, and Mariah, always the workhorse, put her film project on hold. The result was #1s, which despite being a contractual obligation, still became a major success. Then in 1999, she decided to put All That Glitters on pause once again to finish Rainbow and get out of her contract with Columbia. The moment she was free, she was ready to finish what she started. By now, her working relationship with Mottola had completely deteriorated. He wanted her off Columbia and she wanted out. Virgin Records saw an opportunity and swooped in with a $100 million deal, one of the most expensive record contracts of all time.
Like Mariah Carey just had this big $20 million. That's like a huge deal, right?
So you feeling that?
No, well, what I mean, I don't understand. What the public sees the word $20 million an album. Well,
let's see. Do you all think that's a good deal?
Well, I mean, tell me why. I mean, what am I missing?
Okay, let's do some math.
Okay.
If
you do math like that?
Yeah, kind of. If you sign me, you sign me to a record company,
right,
or a record deal, let's suppose you have a record company.
Right.
How much would you give me? The album sells for $18, right? $18.
Whatever. Yeah.
All right. How much of that would you give me?
Well, I don't know how it works.
Well, no.
Half.
Half? Half sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Check this out. If I sell 1 million copies, I'm going to have $10 million, right? Roughly $10 million.
Right.
If I sell 2 million copies, I got $20 million.
Right.
If I just sell 3 million copies, I got $30 million. Now who has the biggest record deal?
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Okay.
Right? So Mariah kind of got screwed.
For comparison, in 1991, Janet Jackson broke a record by signing a $40 million record deal with Virgin Records in 1991. Just days later, her brother Michael would break that record with a $65 million deal with Sony that same year. And Janet would break her brother's record in 1996 with an $80 million deal. Now signed to Virgin, Mariah had full creative control over All That Glitters, a project she had been waiting years to complete. The concept was simple: an 80s-inspired soundtrack that reflected the film's setting, but what should have been a fresh start quickly spiraled into a nightmare.
You're going to start?
July 3rd, and I'm going, in fact, to finish the soundtrack tonight. Flying away, jetting off.
Do you ever rest? Do you ever sleep?
No, that's a problem of mine that I've had for quite some time. Yeah.
And so you expect these starring roles and the concerts, that's a bit of a problem. You know, I'm going to be the mother now. You must slow down, dear.
Well, I need someone to tell me that, so thank you very much. But fortunately, I have a new ensemble in the back that I can go change into. So I'll meet you later.
Congratulations on the nomination.
I'm going to steal one of yours because we match.
We do. We match. We match tonight. Okay. Very good. All right. Don't go away. The excitement continues. Win the 6th annual Blockbuster Entertainment Awards. Continue.
Ooh, collector's item. Here we go.
eBay.
Just finished day 2. I'm completely and totally exhausted, but that's all right because I'm looking forward to collapsing in my trailer, and tomorrow Brad's going to be here, so everything's going to be all right. 20-something hours. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. Now, you have been up for 20-something hours because you were telling me that you've just finished wrapping a film as of this morning. Is that correct?
Yes, 3 a.m. And then I got home, I guess I got in bed about 6 a.m. And I'm fine, but the rest of the people with me are like ready to collapse. They're seeing double. I unknowingly had imposed this intense, like, work ethic on myself that nobody could maintain.
Let's talk a little bit about that work ethic, because it's one thing to say Mariah Carey's a hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing to say Mariah Carey is a workaholic.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big difference between the two. You are a workaholic?
I don't know if it's workaholic, but it's the nature of this business. But I just take that work ethic and I kind of push it past the limit. Louise, look at my manager. She's so upset right now. She's so concerned. Kids don't care if I act like a freak right now because I'm tired and exhausted. And who cares? What should I be? Should I sit here like, whoa, man, I'm really serious about this whole thing. Da-da-da. No, because guess what? I am having fun.
A new movie, Glitter, coming out. It's coming out Labor Day weekend, right?
Yes, it is.
So you can tell us about the movie. Actually, is acting something you've always wanted to do?
I've always wanted to do. When I was little, I used to like always be in plays and stuff, but then for whatever reasons, I couldn't do it for a certain period of time, and now I can. Mm-hmm. And so, so I'm happy about that. And the movie comes out Labor Day weekend. You guys are making me
sorry, right. We love Mariah. Just give it up for Mariah, y'all.
Mariah's real, y'all.
Yo, we love Mariah.
I'm sorry.
So what's the concept behind the movie Glitter and the role you play?
The role I play is a character named Billy. She grows up in a foster home. She's taken away from her mom because her mom's an addict. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like her struggle that she goes through. And she's with this DJ in 1982. That's when it takes place.
All right. Interesting sounding, y'all.
Yes.
So this is
so
the worst
please help
part.
me out and go see it.
Check out Glitter.
Because it was my idea and because I was one of the producers, I ended up doing a lot of jobs and wearing a lot of different hats. This was different than my other, hopefully the rest of my experiences will be, because it was a lot of work. It was a big process for me to overcome certain obstacles to get to the place where I could even say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make a movie. And then to actually get the movie made was a really, really big step. And now that everybody's really happy with it with the studio, it's just a great feeling of validation.
By early 2001, Mariah was juggling way too much at once. She was filming All That Glitters, now simply titled Glitter, recording a soundtrack, and adjusting to a new label. The cracks started to show when she began posting bizarre messages on her official website.
So basically all I really want to say is I don't know what's going on with life, and I hope all the fans are good, and I just want you to know that I'm trying to understand things in life right now. And so I really don't feel that I should be doing music right now. And I just want everyone to understand that. And that's really true. So if I don't make music, it's not because I don't want to, for you fans. And I'm just going to do this for me. And I know that the people who care about me will care about me, but I just can't trust anybody anymore right now because I don't understand what's going on. And I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody. But the truth is, I am calling to say that I love you to my fans. I hope this message gets to you. I'm not going to be, Glitter's going to be out soon, and you're going to have that. And then I'm going to be taking some time off.
Her public appearances became more erratic, and soon the media pounced. The breaking point came in July 2001 with the infamous TRL incident.
I'm real the
Love
remix
boy, come on and love me.
What the hell's that?
Give me more.
What?
Touch
Mariah
me,
Carey. You gotta be kidding me.
Ice cream truck. Come on. Wow.
I was just going to commercial.
Hi. Okay, wait. Where's my spot? I got a present for you.
Okay.
Wait, where am I supposed to stand for this?
I don't know. What are you doing here is the question.
I'm here. Can you hold this?
Yeah, sure.
I brought you a present. It's this shirt.
Yes, of course it does. What are you doing? Oh my God. What are you doing? Mariah Carey is stripping on TRL right now.
You're my therapy session right now, Carson.
Okay,
what's wrong? Every now and then, somebody needs a little therapy.
Yes, I understand that.
And today is that moment for me.
What's wrong? Well, you weren't.
Everything's
Aren't
great.
you busy? You just came by TRL to hang out? I did not know about this.
We're just here.
What is this you brought? Is this ice cream?
This is the ice cream truck. See, they had decorated this. Wait, try to avoid shots because these shorts are really short.
Yeah, just don't move. Talk about the ice cream.
But we got to discuss this. Okay.
I didn't know about this. We'll be right back with Mariah Carey on TRL, unexpectedly passing out ice cream.
While the moment was pushed as her being erratic and random, it was a minor moment overall, but of course the tabloids turned it into a spectacle. A few days later, Mariah was hospitalized for extreme exhaustion. The truth, she was having a full-fledged nervous breakdown. Despite everything, the glitter rollout continued. The lead single, Loverboy, dropped in June 2001. It was met with mixed reviews, with critics both praising and criticizing its retro 80s production and the use of the candy sample. The song struggled on the radio, peaking at number 2 at the Billboard Hot 100, her worst performing lead single at the time, which is odd to me. Number 2 is pretty good, but anyways, the Loverboy drama went deeper than just weak airplay. Mariah originally planned to sample Yellow Magic Orchestra's 1978 track Firecracker for the song, but suddenly Jennifer Lopez, who was signed to Columbia under Tommy Mottola, secured the exact same sample for I'm Real. Mottola, still bitter over Mariah leaving, had allegedly pulled the strings to get Jennifer the sample first, forcing Mariah to rework Loverboy with a different sample at the last minute.
Everybody, my daughter over there. She's gonna be a really big star one day. You guys in for a real treat. Come on, y'all, give her a hand. Come on, give her a hand.
In a world where proving yourself is everything.
Hey, Billy, can you repeat that verse?
Okay. They don't matter. They're just backup.
One woman is about to get the chance.
When the microphone comes, do something special.
To go from unknown.
You have got a beautiful voice. I want to produce you.
Yeah, right.
To a world she's only dreamed of.
Don't you be getting all freaky on the first date. It's not a date.
Remember the name, Billy Frank.
I didn't even turn you.
Turn it up.
I'm on the radio.
I'm a big fan. Maybe we should get together. They want you to work with other producers.
The label makes these decisions.
You can't let them use the best of you.
What makes you think that's the best of me?
Music brought them together. Could tear them apart.
They need us to go together. Don't forget that.
But love
He's here!
will never let it end.
To us.
Mariah Carey. Glitter.
Musically, Glitter marked a noticeable shift for Mariah. Since the parent film was set in 1983, the soundtrack was heavily inspired by the sound of that era, blending retro 80s production with her signature pop and R&B ballads. Mariah aimed to evoke nostalgia with samples and remakes that would either take listeners back or introduce younger fans to a vintage sound through a modern lens. In her own words, Mariah explained that while the uptempos and remakes were designed to match the film's period, the album still reflected how she would make a record in the present day, with ballads that could stand alone as true Mariah Carey songs. If anything, Glitter was a fun experiment and showcase for the talent of Mariah Carey. She was given a unique task of crafting a body of work that fits as both a film soundtrack as well as a proper entry in her catalog. Glitter is quite frankly the most musically ambitious thing that Mariah Carey has ever done. It is a body of work that showcases a musical phoenix expanding her ambition but getting punished for it. In far less melodramatic phrasing, Glitter was Mariah attempting to broaden her musical repertoire and flex her talent a bit. Glitter is without a doubt her most musically distinct record, thanks entirely to its 80s-inspired production, and she truly sounds great here. The first song I ever heard from this album was her cover of Cherrelle's 1984 single, I Didn't Mean to Turn You On, notably written and produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the duo partially responsible for Janet Jackson's reinvention in 1987 with Control. The sound of Mariah's normally 90s R&B vocals against the backdrop of that Minneapolis funk sound that Jimmy and Terry pioneered sounded so pleasing to me. It was so distinct from the Mariah Carey that I knew. In a weird way, Glitter gives us a glimpse of what a Mariah Carey album could have sounded like had she debuted in, say, 1984. Fitting, considering she stands in musical stature next to artists who debuted and or dominated in the 1980s. Glitter isn't a 100% recreation of a Classics 80 record. It sounds very much like it was produced in 2001 at times. The third track, If We, sounds very of the times, and that's not a bad thing at all. It's a highlight of the record for me, and honestly, this should have been a hit. Glitter does have its fair share of features. I would argue that the overabundance of guests overshadow Mariah on her own album at times. The biggest offender here being track 8, a modern cover of Last Night a DJ Saved My Life. Much like the rest of Glitter, the song is musically distinct from anything Mariah has ever done, and as much as I love it, every time I listen to this song in particular, I found myself wishing I had a solo version with Mariah's vocals only, just because the featured ad-libs drown her out at times. I love Busta Rhymes, I just like to hear less of him on that particular record. At a certain point in the song, Busta Rhymes, DJ Clue, and Mariah are all going at the same time, and it's kind of overstimulating. Mariah feels like a background character on Last Night in particular. Although Glitter nails its 80s theme with tracks 6 and 9, All My Life and the Eric Benet duet Want You, two of Mariah's most criminally underrated cuts ever. The album also hosts the usual Mariah ballad standards, like the second track, Lead the Way, the criminally underrated fourth single, Reflections Care Enough, as well as the second single, Never Too Far. Never Too Far is very much a classic pop diva ballad. The song was released as the album's second single on August 14, 2001. A music video was planned, but was canceled in the midst of Mariah recovering from her bout of exhaustion coupled with her breakdown. The final track is the mournful encore titled Twister. Though it was featured in the film, it had nothing to do with the movie. It is a tribute to Mariah's late friend and stylist Tondra Twist, who tragically took her own life in 2000. Twister is, in my opinion, one of the most gorgeous things that Mariah Carey has ever done, and I feel that statement applies to the entirety of Glitter. I firmly believe the harsh reception of Glitter deterred Mariah from straying too far from her core sound ever again. The initial reception to this record was quite frankly unfair. The public couldn't separate the film and the soundtrack. I hardly refer to this album as a soundtrack, honestly. To me, it's a Mariah Carey album no different than Emotions, Butterfly, or Albert Einstein. And when viewed through that lens, it's far easier to digest. The fact of the matter is that much of the negative reception of Glitter, the album, was simply by being associated with its unfortunate box office flop.
Kids every day who are in the same, a lot of them in the same position, who say they have been overwhelmed by their lives. They're not Mariah Carey, but they're overwhelmed by their lives and lost themselves. Right. It seems like that's what happened to you. You got overwhelmed.
Human being.
Yeah, you lost yourself.
I was caretaking for the career. I was overcompensating for the career and totally lost myself, if that makes any sense.
It does make a lot of sense. I talked to lots of people who are not up on stage doing it, but who are just leading ordinary lives, who lose themselves in the process.
Right, but of course we as celebrities are not allowed to do that, you know what I mean? Because then the press wants to make it into some bizarre, scenario, as opposed to being sympathetic, you know what I mean? Like, I can understand how somebody can be taking care of a house full of kids and have a relationship, maybe a difficult relationship, or sometimes also work a job and get exhausted. It happens.
The Glitter soundtrack was released on September 11th, 2001. A date that would ensure failure no matter how good the product was. In the wake of the tragic attacks, nobody cared about a campy musical drama. The album was panned by critics, and the movie was a box office disaster. In the industry's eyes, Mariah had gone from pop's golden girl to a joke. The Glitter failure sent shockwaves through the industry. Virgin Records, which had just signed her to one of the biggest deals in history, was now desperate to cut their losses. They invoked a clause in her contract and paid her $28 million to leave the label, officially dropping her. It was humiliating. The biggest female artist of the 90s was now being dismissed like an afterthought. When all was said and done, Mariah had endured sabotage from her ex-husband and former label, public humiliation, a bombed album and movie, and getting dropped from her new label. It was, without a doubt, the lowest point of her career. But Mariah Carey is not the type to disappear. She didn't need to prove anything. She had already redefined pop music. Most artists would have crumbled under this level of scrutiny and ridicule. Just months after Glitter, Mariah was already back in the studio penning her first attempt at redemption.
Okay, well, it was an emotional and physical collapse. That's what it was. So, and this is something that really only required like 2 weeks of rest. Basically, I was working 22-hour days promoting, traveling around the world, doing sometimes 20 interviews a day. So the focus it requires to sit here and talk to you, I'd have to do that like 20 times a day with people from all over the world that would fly in. And it's so depleting and exhausting. Then they'd say, now we have a photo shoot. Go take pictures. I'd had it before, but I was on a new label because I had finally gotten away from the first label where I was, which I had a lot of success there, but it was very difficult to have those personal ties. It got to a point it was like, gotta go. And then divorced, and while divorced, being there was very, very difficult because people that worked there didn't know whether they were supposed to be nice to me, whether they were supposed to like my music, whether they were supposed to hate me. Pressure had been building for a very long time, and my whole thing is you hit it dead on and you keep going. But at a certain point, when you're also with a new label and a new situation, and I was working a soundtrack, which was something different than an album. You know what I mean? You have all these other deadlines that you have to deal with the movie companies. Yeah, and so I'm dealing with that. And I was dealing with so much business stuff that I hadn't had to do before. The people at that company didn't really understand me as an artist or how to support me. Plus, I didn't have a personal assistant with me at the time to say, okay, now she needs a 5-minute break to eat something. I had never learned how to say no. Because I thought it's hard to say no. I thought if I said no, everything would crumble around me, and then it'd be my fault if something didn't succeed. You know what I mean? So I tried to get away from everybody and say, look, no, I need some time for me. And they just didn't get that because it was so out of character for me.
Do you feel that you get as much credit as a singer, songwriter, and producer as, say, a male counterpart?
No. I don't want to be like, woe is me. But, I mean, there's a certain stigma sort of attached to this whole diva thing that everybody likes to use now. And it's like most people who are technically divas don't write their songs, don't produce, and don't spend the time in the studio. And that's nothing against them. But usually when someone has a big voice, you don't really have to do that. But writing is like, 50% of what I love about making music. And I can't just write a song and then leave the studio. So I think if I had a guitar in my hand and was strumming it the whole time, people would be like, okay, singer-songwriter. But because I stand there looking, I guess, diva-esque, I don't think people think about it. But whatever. I'd rather be a girl, so. And I have been through some tough times, as have we all. But you know what? The thing that I tried to put into my music is the spirit of someone who stays with things and, makes it happen despite adversity. The songs like Hero or Through the Rain are about survival. Right. And that's what I'm all about. That's how I've gotten through my life. And music is something that has gotten me through every difficult situation. So Charmbracelet, this album, was just like my emotional release. Writing down everything I needed to say, singing from my heart, a healing process. So I look at this particular album as like, each song is sort of like a charm in its own way that represents something about me or something about my experiences. And the album is kind of the link that holds them all together. And it's something that I'm handing down to my fans, like passing on to my fans. I think one of the reasons I pushed myself so hard and worked so hard is because I never felt special. Like the one thing that made me feel special was my music. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel like I fit in with other kids because I really didn't. We didn't have a lot of money growing up at all. Sometimes I had to live with different friends of my mother, when we didn't have a place to stay. And the one thing that kept me focused and kept me going was this total belief in myself that I had to have in order to know, like, I'm going to get through this and I'm never going to...
And that belief was in your work?
In my work.
Not anything else?
In the singing, in the musicality.
To put it simply, Charmbracelet is quintessential Mariah Carey. If there's one word to describe this album, it's authentic. It feels more Mariah than some of her more commercially successful records, like an album that truly embodies who she is as an artist. It's early 2000s R&B at its best, showcasing her unmatched ability to blend hip-hop and R&B in ways only she can. The album is glamorous, dreamy, and draped in that signature Mariah aesthetic from start to finish. Where Glitter was a misunderstood experiment, a love letter to the 80s that never got its due credit, Charmbracelet felt like her first true step into the new millennium. It took elements she had a soft launch with Daydream, perfected with Butterfly, and expanded on with Rainbow, and brought them into a fresh, modern era. Mariah's first 3 albums are indisputably iconic. They lay the foundation for one of the most legendary careers in music history. But personally, I've always preferred Daydream and Beyond because that's when Mariah was finally able to make the music she truly wanted to make. It's not that she didn't want to make her earlier albums, but back then, she was heavily steered toward a specific adult contemporary pop sound. In simpler terms, she wasn't allowed to make anything that sounded too black.
In the beginning, I was like, yeah, I agree, I should be simple. But at a certain point, I was like, I really want to do something different with that hair. You know, like to wear another color other than a black dress. But, you know, they wanted to keep me the same way, and that's not fair to do to anybody because you grow and mature as an artist and as a person. And what happened with me was I just felt very stifled for a long period of time.
I think what you call the new Mariah is the Mariah that's always been there, that's just been kind of hiding behind those gowns.
The second she expressed a desire to work with hip-hop artists and producers, her label pulled her back in. Honestly, the fact that the Fantasy remix even got released was a miracle, but once she broke free, she never looked back. Had she not insisted on making the music she wanted to make, we might never have gotten Honey, Breakdown, Heartbreaker, or literally any of her post-2000 releases. Her ability to merge hip-hop and R&B with pop sensibilities wasn't just ahead of its time, it actively shaped modern pop music. If there's one unifying theme across this album, it's love, plain and simple. Considering everything she went through leading up to this moment, the public breakdown, the glitter disaster, being dropped by Virgin, and even the passing of her father, you'd expect this album to be dark, moody, and full of heartbreak. But instead, Mariah gave us something soft, delicate, and sentimental. It's her most personal album since Butterfly, and the 2 records actually share a lot of DNA. As I mentioned before, Charmbracelet is a return to the signature hip-hop and R&B fusion that she perfected in the late 90s with a lighter, more reflective approach. And that softer sound is mirrored in her vocals. One of the most noticeable things about Charmbracelet is Mariah's vocal delivery. She sings in a sultry, almost whisper-like tone throughout most of the record. I think her softer tone here adds another level of softness to the overall project. There's something intimate and delicate about it, which perfectly complements the sparkly Y2K era R&B and hip-hop production. It makes the album feel even more unique, despite being cut from the same cloth as her late 90s releases. In a way, Charmbracelet was Mariah reclaiming her artistic identity. At the time of Charmbracelet's release, many critics saw it as an attempt for Mariah to reclaim her core audience after the fallout for Glitter. The theory gained traction due to the album's quick turnaround. Just a little over a year after Glitter, which was released in September 2001, came Charmbracelet in December 2002. But honestly, Glitter was doomed from the start. Even if there hadn't been a media frenzy surrounding her personal life, the album's release date meant that the entertainment industry had ground to a halt. The last thing on people's minds was a new Mariah Carey album. But Charmbracelet was much more than just damage control or an attempt to remove Glitter from everyone's memories. It was Mariah doing what she's always done, moving forward, creating and expressing herself through music.
Let's see, the highlight of my musical career. There have been so many really nice things that have happened to me and that I've been blessed enormously to be able to do this for a living because I love making music so much, writing songs and singing songs and making music, producing records. I think one of the most rewarding things is when fans tell me that a song has helped them get through a difficult time. Like a lot of my fans have been telling me that this new song, Through the Rain, has helped them overcome different situations. And when I hear that as a songwriter, it really makes me feel very proud and feel like what I'm doing, has a purpose.
At the heart of the album is its opening track and lead single, Through the Rain, a song that encapsulates everything she had endured in the year prior. A sweeping R&B ballad, it was a stark contrast to the high-energy hip-hop infused lead singles that she had released before, like Loverboy, Honey, and Fantasy. It was also by far her most understated lead single to date. At the conception of Charmbracelet, Mariah's label and team wanted the album to be an almost back-to-basics situation, as they believed the public was still laughing at her after the glitter incident. The first action item on their list was for Mariah to write what they referred to as an I Will Survive-esque anthem of overcoming adversity. Mariah got to work, and the result was Through the Rain. Throughout the first years of her career, Mariah's music was largely pop-infused R&B, and her image reflected that, wholesome, reserved, and carefully curated. As she evolved, she pushed for more artistic control, integrating hip-hop influences and collaborating with rappers on remixes. Her music became bolder, sexier, and more youthful, distancing herself from the adult contemporary sound that initially made her a superstar. Because of this evolution, Through the Rain felt like a return to her early ballad-driven sound. Some saw it as an effort to reconnect with fans who had been with her since her Vision of Love days, while others felt it alienated those who had embraced her hip-hop influenced era. Through the Rain acted as a bridge, acknowledging the struggles of Mariah's past year while signaling a return to her roots. Despite its critical acclaim, Through the Rain underperformed commercially, peaking at 81 on the Billboard Hot 100, her first lead single to miss the top 40 in the US. Mind you, even Loverboy peaked at number 2. Through the Rain, however, did find success internationally. While Through the Rain didn't soar on the charts like her previous hits, its true impact wasn't in its numbers, it was in what it represented. It was a statement of resilience, a declaration that despite the setbacks, the scrutiny, and the personal struggles, Mariah was still here, still standing, and still singing her truth. The second track and single from Charmbracelet was the delightfully dreamy Boy I Need You, featuring Cameron. This song is peak early 2000s R&B and perfectly encapsulates the era's signature sound. The track is actually a reworked version of Cameron's song Oh Boy, which had been released earlier that year. Originally, Mariah had planned to release The One as the second single, but at the last minute, Boy I Need You was chosen instead. Mariah was so impressed with the production of Oh Boy that she personally pressed Cameron and Just Blaze, the producer of the track, to create something similar for her. However, after much back and forth with no real results, they ultimately convinced her to just recreate Oh Boy outright. Thus, Boy I Need You was born. Despite its undeniable appeal, the song didn't get the recognition it deserved, peaking at number 68 on the Billboard Hot R&B and Hip Hop Songs chart. It's honestly criminal how overlooked the song is, especially since it highlights Mariah's effortless ability to float over hip-hop infused R&B, a brand that, let's be real, she pioneered. Boy I Need You is by far one of my personal favorite songs by Mariah, exemplifying the overall vibe of Charmbracelet perfectly. Yours is another highlight, fully embracing the sparkling, glamorous R&B sound that defines Charmbracelet to me. A freshly solo Justin Timberlake was allegedly supposed to be involved with Yours, either on the original track or a remix. However, his label reportedly scrapped the collaboration because they didn't want Justin associated with Mariah, whose image at the time was still quote-unquote tainted by the glitter era.
Because baby, I'm forever yours. I love you, New York.
Thank you.
Lullaby feels like a spiritual successor to 4th of July from Butterfly, capturing that same ethereal floating on a cloud vibe, while Subtle Invitation brings in rich, soulful elements, showcasing Mariah's jazzier side. Another overlooked track on this album of overlooked tracks is You Got Me featuring Jay-Z and Freeway. The song marked a reunion for Mariah and Jay-Z after their 1999 smash Heartbreaker, yet it's barely ever talked about.
Okay, so what was going on between you and Eminem, if anything?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Look, I talked to him. I, have spoken to him a few times, whatever. But in terms of me having like an intimate relationship with men, I can name them all on one hand, and he ain't on the hand. Less than one hand, okay? He is not on the hand.
you know, yes, me and Mariah did have a relationship for about a good 6-7 months, something like that.
Wow. What happened?
You know,
it just go bad or what?
Didn't work. I wasn't really into what she was into. We didn't. Our personalities collided.
She didn't like animals?
She's a diva, and I'm not really. I'm a little more like regular, I guess, in the sense of, you know, and I don't mean to put the down.
It doesn't sound like it at all.
Right. But because she can sing her ass off. You know what I'm saying? So I could never deny her talent. But the fact that she denied that we ever had something, that's bad.
Well, you
know, I'll leave her alone. You know what I'm saying?
Around 2001, rumors swirled that Mariah and Eminem had a thing. Eminem, being Eminem, added fuel to the fire on his 2002 track, Superman, where he implied that Mariah wanted something serious while he wasn't interested. Then came Clown. The lyrics paint Eminem as an insecure liar whose private persona contradicts the image he puts out to the world, and in true Mariah fashion, she didn't need to name drop. She let the lyrics speak for themselves. Charmbracelet also marked the first time that Mariah cursed in a song, both in Clown and The One. However, in both cases, the words were censored. Because of this, the album was the first in her catalog to receive a parental advisory label in some territories. Producer Randy Jackson, yes, the American Idol judge, not Michael's brother, played a big role in Charmbracelet, collaborating with Mariah on My Saving Grace, Sunflowers for Alfred Roy, a deeply personal tribute to Mariah's father, who had recently passed away, and I Only Wanted. Randy was also the one who suggested Mariah cover Bringing on the Heartbreak, originally by Def Leppard. This was one of the few times Mariah leaned into a rock influence, and it worked surprisingly well. The song was released as the album's third and final single on June 2nd, 2003. Unfortunately, much like Boy I Need You, it didn't chart on the Hot 100. Ironically, the biggest hit from Charmbracelet didn't even come from the album itself. Mariah hopped on Busta Rhymes' song I Know What You Want, also featuring his Flip Mode Squad. The song was a massive hit, peaking at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. For Mariah, it was a return to form after a string of underperforming singles.
Sometimes I'm tired and I just don't feel like talking anymore and I just want to go to sleep. And sometimes, you know, the fun person that you see on TV, that's really me. Like, I enjoy life. I love life. I'm blessed to have the life I live.
Mariah, please.
I'll see you next time in Spain, okay? When? Soon I'm going to do a tour and all things of that nature. So we're leaving Barcelona now. Though we'd love to stay here, we've got to go. And I'm not quite sure where we're going, but we're going somewhere. And we're going to meet back up with you soon, okay? Enjoy your night. I feel like sometimes you have to go through really difficult times to get to your best work. And I think to a lot of artists, you know, pain inspires music. I'm in a really good place in my life right now. I feel happy. I feel like everything that happens in life happens for a reason. And like the lessons I learn are all things that were put in front of me for a reason. But I think the immediate goal is to just enjoy life and to appreciate, you know, just being here.
As I mentioned throughout this series, the Charmbracelet era was designed as a back-to-basics reset, both sonically and visually. While I truly believe that Mariah didn't approach this album as damage control, it's clear that the industry saw it that way. Let's not forget, music is a business, and everything about this era, from her image to her interviews, was meticulously crafted to ease her back into public favor, even down to her hair, which was often styled this era and a more curly fashion to evoke nostalgia of her earliest looks. This wasn't just an album rollout, it was a subtle reintroduction. She was also encouraged to be more open in interviews, talking candidly about the passing of her father, her public breakdown, and the fallout from Glitter. The hope was that by humanizing herself, by appearing vulnerable and relatable, the public might finally see her beyond the diva persona. And to her credit, Mariah leaned in. There's a level of honesty in her interviews from this time that's both refreshing and heartbreaking. She wasn't hiding it, she was owning it. Despite her efforts, Charmbracelet debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 with 241,000 copies sold in its first week. Respectable, but not the commercial comeback Island Def Jam had hoped for. The album quickly fell off the charts, and its lead single, Through the Rain, became her lowest charting lead to date. Boy I Need You didn't even make the Hot 100 or the bubbling underchart. With the album stalling, the label pushed Mariah to hit the road. Historically, she hasn't toured as extensively as her peers, but the Charmbracelet tour became her most ambitious run yet, with 69 shows over 8 months. Outside of touring, Mariah worked overtime during this era. TV specials, award shows, talk show appearances, you name it, she did it. She was quite literally everywhere during this period. For an album the public supposedly didn't care about, the push behind Charmbracelet was pretty extensive. 2 of the 3 singles failed to chart, the lead single underperformed, and yet Mariah kept going well into 2004. Most labels would have shelved the era after that second single tanked. Despite performing most of the album on television appearances, the tour itself only had maybe 3 or 4 cuts from the album itself. In the end, Charmbracelet went platinum in the US, selling just over 1.1 million copies and 4.5 million worldwide. Not a flop, but definitely underwhelming for someone of Mariah's caliber. And that's what stings, because for Mariah, this album was personal. It was her first step forward after one of the darkest chapters of her life. But the industry didn't care. Critics were lukewarm, the public was indifferent, even though Charmbracelet is arguably one of the most Mariah albums she's ever made, in my opinion. Warm, glamorous, soulful, it got overlooked. Now I can understand why people didn't get Glitter. It was a sonic departure, a full-blown 80s pastiche. But Charmbracelet, this is textbook Mariah Carey. Her vocals, her writing, her heart, it's all here. And yet the world didn't show up for it. Not because it wasn't good, but because people had already written her off. The more time I spend with this record, the more frustrated I get on Mariah's behalf. Originally, I ranked Charmbracelet as number 6 in my personal Mariah album ranking. After revisiting it for this series, it might honestly be my top 5. It's a gorgeous record. And speaking of gorgeous, this woman was absolutely stunning in 2003 and 2004. Of course, Mariah Carey has always been gorgeous, but Charmbracelet specifically is just absolutely wow. Still, this was her second consecutive album to be dismissed by critics and ignored by the American public. People had bought into the narrative. Mariah Carey was done. She was a relic of the 90s, washed up, irrelevant. And honestly, it's a miracle we still have Mariah today in the way that we do. Another artist might have disappeared or given up. She was tired, she was wounded, but she still had some fight left in her. Her back was against the wall, and honestly at this point she had nothing to lose. Nobody, not the public, not the industry, not even Mariah herself could have predicted what would happen next. Looking back now, Charmbracelet is such a fascinating moment in her story. It's the bridge between the disaster of Glitter and the triumph of what came next. It's soft, reflective, and elegant, a calm, gentle breath before the storm. Truly the prelude to her emancipation.
Well, I don't know how many people know this, but my dog is a Jack Russell Terrier. His name is Jack, and he has 2 websites dedicated to him. He's very famous. Let's see, what else don't people know? A lot of people don't know that my nickname is Mimi, and that's why I named this new record The Emancipation of Mimi, because it's the first time I'm kind of like sharing that nickname with the public, so that's something you may not have known. Well, I feel like this album is really for those people who really want to just enjoy an overall record without having to like skip a lot of the songs. It's very like, to me, it's like it gives you a real spirit of like an uplifting kind of free-spirited feeling, and I think that's, that's why I kind of named it The Emancipation of Mimi, because it does make you feel like free and happy and just want to sing. And well, I was on tour and I was just really enjoying singing and then resting, and it got my voice in a really good place, and so I decided that I really wanted to get back into the studio, because this is like the longest
time I've taken to make an album and stuff. So I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do. I just knew that I really wanted to sing and get back in the studio. You know what? I just learned to really let go and be free and have a great time in the studio. And because this record was just about, there were no rules or regulations or anything. It was just really just me feeling free with the microphone or with my pad or my pen, just writing. So it was a really nice experience.
After Glitter and Charmbracelet, a lot of people counted you out.
Well, Charmbracelet, first of all, both of those records had good songs on them to me, but a lot of people didn't even bother to listen because of all the backlash from the movie. So it was like, between that and everything else that was going on in the world at the time, it was September 11th when that whole thing started, and it was just a bleak moment. But I'm the same person I was before any dramas and rumors and nonsense, and before that I was the same person I was as a little kid, broke with no money, you know, with a dream. So if I had changed with fame and that had made me into a different person, I think all this stuff would have probably broken me. You can't just be like, you know, oh, somebody wrote me off. I'm sorry, I thought I had 15 #1 songs before that and sold 150 million records. Thank you, God. But I'm saying, you don't write somebody off who's already achieved stuff of that magnitude. But the great thing is, if they did, then now they can say, okay, well, we wrote her off. Maybe, you know, we were wrong. Maybe the next person will get a chance and won't have to go through what I went through. You know what? It's funny because when people ask me, like, well, how do you feel about those people who wrote you off? You know, I have to explain, like, even when they wrote me off, I was already in the history books with a lot of these things. Like I still had broken those records. So for people to write me off, the only thing was it was a little bit jarring for me that people were so quick to write me off and were so brutal about it. But, you know, you have to go through things in order to come out the other side, like I said. I think I wouldn't have been blessed with such a phenomenal success with this album if it were about anger right now for me. You know what I mean? I had to go through a situation where people did write me off, because people really do tend to believe whatever they read, whatever they see in the papers. And I used to be one of those people until I experienced what it can be like to go through something that's, you know, really deep and really kind of, you know, intense. And to go from that and to just be creative and to make an album and to not lose faith in myself, I think was my lesson.
Granted, I was only 5, maybe 6 years old when Glitter dropped, but even from a distance, it's clear that the whole failure narrative was blown way out of proportion. At that point, Mariah Carey wasn't just a pop star. She was the most successful female artist of all time, with 15 #1 hits across 7 albums in just 10 years. Let that sink in. I've known that stat for years, and it still blows my mind. But of course, no streak lasts forever. Every artist's light dims eventually, and when you're on the level of Michael, Janet, Whitney, and yes, Mariah, that fall from grace is always exaggerated. So after 2 back-to-back commercial flops, people started asking the inevitable question: was Mariah Carey just a 90s artist? Had her success faded with the century? The Emancipation of Mimi answered that question with a resounding no. Not only did it mark a massive comeback, it was essentially a reset to Mariah's career. This album was my own personal entry point into Mariah Carey. It was the first time I'd heard her name, the first time her music entered my world, and I know I'm not alone. The Emancipation of Mimi reintroduced Mariah Carey to a whole new generation of fans who might have missed her during her 90s reign. I've never seen a resurgence quite like the one Mariah had during this era. The longevity of a pop star is fragile, especially for women in the industry. And when you start your career as explosively as Mariah did, the second your numbers dip, people are ready to write you off. But the Emancipation of Mimi wasn't just a comeback. It was a full-blown rebirth. It was a hit that no one, not the public, not the critics, not even Mariah herself, saw coming. And that's what makes it so special. At its core, Emancipation is an album unburdened. It's Mariah's party record, her moment of freedom, her return to form without apology. After years of being sidelined and underestimated, she came back with nothing to prove and everything to give. She made the music she wanted to make. No restraints, no expectations, just pure, unfiltered Mariah.
Well, there's 2 different things. There's the music business and then there's music. I'm always going to love music. I love making music. I love writing songs. I love singing. But the thing is, I've already proven myself with the amount of records I've sold in my career. I started doing this like right out of high school and I never took a break. So
and I've broken a lot of records. And, you know, the industry is so different over the past even like 3 years of just the way the downloading is. And people can't put out a record and do like what Music Box did, like 35 million. Like that doesn't really happen anymore because of downloading and stuff, no matter who it is. So I'm not in competition with myself from the past. I'm just trying to make the best records I can make, and that's what I feel this is. This is my best record in a really long time, and so I'm proud of that. So I already accomplished my goal, so there's no pressure because I already did what I had to do.
Her soft, whispery tone that defined Charmbracelet was completely replaced with a louder and prouder vocal performance. Emancipation is an album that is defined by Mariah belting in such a way that the album couldn't be ignored. It's almost as if she's making the world pay attention to her again after 2 consecutive album cycles of her being wrongfully ignored. Album cuts like Stay the Night, Circles, I Wish You Knew, and Joyride are definitive examples of this, as well as being some of the best album cuts in her entire discography. For Emancipation, she chases a retro R&B vibe that felt stripped down and honest, not overly produced or polished. While Glitter was also classic R&B with its 80s theme, it arguably felt a bit contrived at times. It felt very intentional. The way it's handled on Emancipation feels very natural. The influences don't characterize the entire body of work this time.
Okay, we're going to get into the last video now, and this is a very special video to me because it's my brand new video from the Emancipation of Mimi, which is my new record in stores now, and it's the first single. I put a lot of work into this record. I love this single. It's a lot of fun. It's a club, what they call a club banger, and it's a Jermaine Dupri track, and he's one of my favorite people in the world. He's featured in the video and on the record, as is Fat Man Scoop, who is in the video and on the record. It's a lot of fun. We had a great time making this video. It's also directed by Brett Ratner, who did the Heartbreaker video. Check it out. This is our last video on Planet Mariah today. It's called It's Like That. Bye-bye. Thanks for being with me.
The album's opener and lead single, It's Like That, sets the tone for the Emancipation of Mimi perfectly. A bold, celebratory track drenched in confidence and energy. The lyrics center around releasing stress and letting go of bitterness. In other words, literal emancipation. It's a night out anthem, a declaration of freedom after a period of intense public scrutiny and personal struggle. Musically, It's Like That is an up-tempo blend of R&B and hip-hop, crafted for the clubs but driven by purpose. And though it didn't hit the commercial highs of her 90s lead singles, it still managed to peak at number 16 on the Hot 100, which was a solid improvement from the quieter reception of Through the Rain from Charmbracelet. Originally, the album was submitted without some of its now key tracks. The plan was for Stay the Night, the first song recorded for the album, to be the lead single. However, it was eventually scrapped. Then Say Something with Snoop Dogg, produced by the Neptunes, was considered, but it was too pulled from the lead slot. Island Def Jam's L.A. Reid felt the project needed more punch, so back to the studio Mariah went, reuniting with her longtime collaborator Jermaine Dupri. While on her Charmbracelet tour in early 2004, Mariah had already begun writing material for what would become the Emancipation of Mimi. As her previous mentor had left Island Def Jam for Warner Brothers Records, L.A. Reid replaced him. A few critics predicted a successful comeback for Mariah, as L.A. Reid had been a key mentor for Pink, Avril Lavigne, and Usher. However, some skeptics were quick to point out that L.A. was also responsible for spearheading comeback attempts for Whitney Houston's 2002 album Just Whitney, Toni Braxton's More Than a Woman, and TLC's 3D, all of which heavily underperformed. And of course, much of the public still considered Mariah to be a has-been in the wake of the failure of her 2 previous albums, and some even went as far to advise her to retire. There was a period of time during the conception of the Emancipation of Mimi when Mariah seriously began to second-guess herself and the direction of the album. Particularly, she felt very conflicted about what direction she wanted to take with the Emancipation album. Half of the public wanted her to do pure ballads again, while the other half wanted more hip-hop. Charmbracelet was, for all intents and purposes, a return to the late 90s Mariah more or less, but it fell on deaf ears. Some saw that as a sign that she needed to do an even harder reset and that she should return to her debut roots. Some felt she should have been more conservative, while others felt that she hadn't pushed her boundaries far enough. There was a fear of another Glitter, unspoken but felt. Ultimately, there really wasn't a clear direction to go. Mariah was in quite the odd spot, so she trusted her gut and pushed forward. Prior to the initial submission of the album, the joint efforts of Mariah and Jermaine Dupri together yielded Shake It Off and Get Your Number, which would later become the album's third and fourth singles. But it was during their second round of collaboration that the magic happened. They created both It's Like That and We Belong Together in the last moments of the album's creation. Those two songs instantly became the core of the album and the launchpad for what would become one of the biggest comebacks in music history. It's Like That brought the party, the freedom, the glamour. It was loud, unrestrained, and not just metaphorically. But as much as It's Like That lit the fuse, it was We Belong Together that blew everything wide open. Released on March 15, 2005, We Belong Together wasn't just a hit. It was a cultural moment that defined 2000s pop. After years of media doubt and critical side-eye, this one ballad silenced the noise. In the simplest arrangement, piano, subtle R&B backbeat, and her voice front and center, she reminded the world that Mariah Carey is a once-in-a-lifetime artist. The song dominated the charts, sitting at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 14 non-consecutive weeks. It tied for the second longest running number 1 in chart history at the time, just behind Mariah's own One Sweet Day with Boyz II Men. It broke airplay records, swept awards, and was eventually named Billboard's Song of the Decade. If Beyonce owned 2003 with Crazy in Love and Usher ran 2004 with Yeah, then 2005 belonged to Mariah Carey and We Belong Together. This level of comeback was just unheard of, especially for a woman who had been counted out so aggressively. We Belong Together wasn't just a hit, it was a reclamation of power, of artistry, of identity. It was personal. It was Mariah Carey reminding the world that she was never truly gone. They just weren't listening. And the best part about it is that this song wasn't even the only smash from the album. However, it did eclipse the rest of the singles as it should have. It was ultimately her definitive 2000s track, essentially a vision of love for a new generation, and a pop and R&B classic in every sense of the word. The back-to-back release of It's Like That and We Belong Together was a masterclass in the rollout strategy. Those two songs showed off the duality of Mariah's sound, the R&B hip-hop fusion she helped pioneer, and the sweeping emotional ballads that made her a household name. And to think that these were the final two cuts for the album, crafted in the very last days of its creation. In just two singles, Mariah turned her career around completely, and that's what makes The Emancipation of Mimi so special. It's not just a comeback album, it's a testament to resilience. It's a reminder that true talent never fades, even when the industry tries to dim your light. Mariah didn't just return to the spotlight, she snatched it back. Following the monumental success of We Belong Together wasn't an easy task, but nonetheless, Mariah would nab another hit with the third single from Emancipation, the bouncy, sassy bop titled Shake It Off. The song was released on July 11, 2005 as a third single in the United States. Shake It Off keeps with the theme of its parent album, embracing an attitude of unbotheredness and knowing one's worth, as the song talks about Mariah packing up her things and moving on from a relationship. The song had the distinction of stalling at number 2 on the Hot 100, being blocked by Mariah's own song, as We Belong Together was literally unstoppable at the time. Had it not been for We Belong Together, Shake It Off would have undoubtedly been Mariah's 17th number 1 hit. With the former sitting at number 1 and the latter sitting at number 2, Mariah Carey became the first female lead artist in history to occupy the top 2 positions on the Hot 100. Get Your Number was pushed as the third international single and 4th overall on October 3rd, 2005, my birthday. It failed to make a fraction of the success of the previous 3 singles, partially because it wasn't pushed in the USA, but the single did fare moderately well overseas. On November 15, 2005, The Emancipation of Mimi was re-released under the subtitle Ultra Platinum Edition, and it came with a brand new single to lead the charge, Don't Forget About Us, which was the 5th single overall from the Emancipation era. The song lyrically chronicles the emotions felt by the protagonists after the loss of their relationship, although Mariah has explained that the true meaning of the song is to be interpreted by the listener, therefore not disclosing its entire meaning publicly. The song's production actually started during the initial sessions for Emancipation, however, it wasn't completed in time. Once it was decided a reissue for the album would be done, the song was one of the first completed for it. Don't Forget About Us admittedly sounds very similar to its more successful sibling single, We Belong Together, but nonetheless, it's a standout track from the album and a key song from Mariah's 2000s run of singles. And apparently people loved the similarities, as the song became the second number 1 single from The Emancipation of Mimi and Mariah's 17th number 1 single overall. With this achievement, Mariah tied with Elvis Presley for most #1 singles by a solo artist.
The album is very much like a fun, happy party record with, of course, some ballads that make you cry and that are really cool but are not overproduced, so you really hear the vocals a lot. But I wanted to end it on that really, it's a very positive note, but it's a very meaningful song to me because it is spiritual, and my life has been a journey that God has put me on, like he puts everybody on a journey. So it's like I'm at this really great point in my life, and I just wanted to share that message with everybody, out there, the spiritual part of who I am. So I think people are going to see a different side of me on this record.
The 6th single from The Emancipation of Mimi was the gospel-tinged powerhouse, Fly Like a Bird. Easily one of the most emotional and personal songs in Mariah's catalog, it's a track rooted in faith, resilience, and survival. At the top of the song, Mariah's longtime pastor reads 2 verses from the Bible. These weren't just aesthetic choices, they were lifelines. From her childhood struggles to the breakdown that nearly ended her career, her faith was the one constant that kept her going. She even said that nobody had ever actually spoken those verses to her during her hardest moments, so she wanted to put them in a song for others who might need to hear them. Fly Like a Bird is the spiritual anchor of the entire Emancipation era. While the album as a whole is celebratory and triumphant, this track is where the heart of that celebration comes from, because you can't have a comeback without surviving the storm first. Mariah believed that the song's spiritual message was really important to include on the album, and chose it as the album's closing track because she felt it kind of leaves you on a spiritual high moment. Fly Like a Bird honestly hits the same note that Mariah tried to hit with Through the Rain. However, Through the Rain didn't connect with the audience the way that it should have. But despite the acclaim, the song never got the mainstream push it deserved. Instead, it was only sent to adult contemporary and gospel radio stations, which limited its reach. It peaked at #4 on the Bubbling Under chart, nowhere near what it could have done if it had been fully promoted. Part of this reason was due to the fact that around the same time, Say Something was released as a 7th and final single from the album. Produced by the Neptunes and featuring Snoop Dogg, it had actually leaked before Mimi even dropped and was rumored to be the original lead single. It's a sleek, cool track and a personal favorite of mine, and it brought a more laid-back and stylish energy to the era. In my opinion, Fly Like a Bird should have gotten the full push. It was the more powerful song both vocally and emotionally, and it had the potential to be a career-defining single if given the spotlight. Not to mention, it just seems like the perfect send-off for both the album and the era. Instead, it had to share the stage with a song that didn't quite carry the same weight. Nevertheless, these 2 singles wrapped up the Emancipation era with variety, showcasing the many sides of Mariah, the spiritual warrior and the effortless cool icon. There's a cool dichotomy between these 2 singles ending the era in the same fashion that It's Like That and We Belong Together opened it.
It's difficult. People don't understand because I still try to, some artists get in a certain position, they're like, no, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing whatever. And I've always tried to be collaborative, like, okay, what do you guys think? Like, how do you think we should go about it?
But even still, selling 7 million albums and
counting.
And counting.
Just joking.
7 million albums and counting. And having the best-selling album of 2005, I had to personally feel good, like, y'all thought I was out. You thought I was done.
A lot of people said, don't you want to call this album The Vindication of Mariah Carey? You know, and I was like, no. The Emancipation of Mimi really means this is a personal record. This is like the freedom of the person, the artist inside of me, you know, who loves making music and loves writing songs and singing. So it's like, you know, and has a personality, by the way, and I'm allowed to have one. Right. So, you know, for a lot of years I wasn't, and people got a little bit freaked out, like, why does she have a personality all of a sudden? Why is she cracking jokes? Like, it's jokes. It's not that deep. This is the music business. It's entertainment. It's fun. You know, so if people want to count you out and that makes them feel better about themselves, then that's a thing. But you know what? I'm just grateful for everything that I've been blessed with, and that's all I can say.
A big reason people pointed to why Glitter and Charmbracelet didn't perform well was the lack of a solid promo. So when it came time for the Emancipation of Mimi, Mariah switched things up. She brought on a new manager and hired a new publicist. This time, the focus wasn't on her past breakdown or tabloid narratives. The new strategy was all about building intrigue around the title itself. She was showing us the version of herself that existed outside of the fame, the pressure, and the Mariah Carey image. It was her saying, "This is me, this is the fun side, the real side." With the Emancipation of Mimi, Mariah wanted to strike a new balance. The album cover was an attempt to create something that still had sex appeal, but in a more elevated grown woman kind of way. It was less about shock value and more about reclaiming her image on her own terms. Still glamorous, still sexy, but now with a sense of power and maturity behind it.
So, Tony, before we present the next award, I'm just wondering, is there any way to mention that you have a new album coming out in a couple weeks and that I'm in the studio recording a new album?
You know, we should probably stick to the script.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, whatever you say. We're here to present the award for Best-Selling Pop Female Artist.
Let's count them down.
Push the button.
The world's best-selling pop female artist, number 5, Jessica Simpson. Number 4, J-Lo. Number 3, Shakira.
Number 2, Kelly Clarkson.
And the world's best-selling pop female artist is...
Mariah Carey.
And Mariah Carey also wins the World Music Award for the most played song of the year.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. Really, thank you so much. This is not me. This is by the grace of God that I'm standing here. I'm so blessed to be here. I just have to thank, once again, L.A. Reid, everybody at IDJ, Mark Sudak. I have to thank all my fans, really, for being here constantly. Everybody else, I'm so full of gratitude. And if I didn't mention you, it's because it's late and I'm forgotten. I didn't mean to. But Doug Morris, thank you for being here from day one, everybody. And just thank you so much. Lots of love to you all. Okay. Thank you so much.
You are too tall to stand out here. Oh my goodness, thank you, Jesus. First of all, I just want to say an extra special thank you to the legendary Don Cornelius for always taking care of me, always being here for me. Wow, I'm so very grateful to so many people that God has placed in my life to allow this year to be my biggest and most successful year in my life. Basically, first of all my true friends, you know who you are, who have been with me always. You always have my back, and I love you, and you know who I'm talking to. Doug Morris, the smartest man in the music industry, and also a very special person. L.A. Reid, a true talent. Jermaine Dupri. I cannot say enough about Jermaine Dupri. My whole management team, Benny Medina, Mark Sudak, Michael Richardson, everyone at Handprint Entertainment and Maroon Entertainment, and the whole Island Def Jam staff who really, really, really did their thing to make this song, We Belong Together, the biggest hit of the year. I'm just grateful to Steve Bartles, Jay-Z, Benny Pugh, Martha Reynolds, Thomas Lytle, Pecos, Eric Wong. He always says, when it's for real, it's forever, so don't forget about Wong. Don't forget about Wong. And I want to thank you, Stephen Hill, also Karen, KK, we call her Karen Kwok from IDJ, Stephen Hill, everyone at BET for all the support always, and the people taking requests from the fans, because the fans are the ones who keep making it happen. I love you, and I thank you so much. God bless you. Good night.
The 20th anniversary.
Let's see. Mariah Carey.
Thank you so much. I just have to first, hey baby. I just have to first take a second and just first of all, thank you so much for the warmth and the love. You have no idea, okay? I have to thank Larry Klein. I have to thank Larry Klein because I was literally, you saw me run across the stage if you were sitting here. My dress was not sewn on. My ear monitors, thing not hooked up. So if anybody saw me pulling out things out of my ear, that was me like, I gotta just freestyle and do what I gotta do. So basically, thank you to the audience. If it wasn't right, I tried, I did the best I could. But thank you, God. The only reason I am here is because because of the grace of God, and if you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Thank you so much. Thank you, L.A. Reid. I love you from my heart and soul. Thank you, Doug Morris. Thank you, Mark Sudak. Thank you, Benny Medina. Thank you, everybody I'm forgetting. Thank you, Tat Tat. I love you. Jermaine Dupri. I love you. Thank you.
Released on April 12, 2005, The Emancipation of Mimi came roaring out of the gate with the highest first week sales of Mariah's entire career, debuting at number 1 on the Billboard 200. It stayed in the top 20 for an astounding 45 weeks, returned to number 1 8 weeks after its debut, and ultimately became the best-selling album of 2005 in the US. It sold over 5.6 million copies in the States alone and over 9.6 million worldwide. This was Mariah's first album to go 6 times platinum since Daydream back in 1995, a full decade apart. Critically, The Emancipation of Mimi was hailed as Mariah's return to form. After the lukewarm reception of Glitter and Charmbracelet, Mimi reminded everyone exactly who they were dealing with. Critics praised her renewed focus, the sharp songwriting, her vocal restraint where needed, and complete vocal annihilation where it counted. It felt like classic Mariah Carey, but modernized, fresh, and absolutely unbothered. The album earned her a career best 8 Grammy nominations, and she walked away with 3, including Best Contemporary R&B Album, Best Female R&B Vocal Performance for We Belong Together, and Best R&B Song. And speaking of, We Belong Together wasn't just a hit, it was the hit. 14 non-consecutive weeks at number 1, Billboard Song of the Decade, the defining pop ballad of the 2000s. Between It's Like That, Shake It Off, Don't Forget About Us, and even underrated cuts like Fly Like a Bird, The Emancipation of Mimi was stacked. To date, by the numbers, The Emancipation of Mimi was and still is Mariah's biggest album of her entire career. It was the first time since Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill back in 1996 that a solo female artist had the year's best-selling album. Mariah Carey's Y2K trilogy of albums detail the experience of a musical angel attempting to spread her wings in a sense. She aimed to expand herself creatively, but fell from grace. She was a shadow of her former glory to many and a relic of the past to others. But resilience and faith in herself and higher powers yielded her the most successful musical comeback of the last 30 years, a recovery that will continue to be talked about for years to come. As I stated before, The Emancipation of Mimi was my personal entry point into the world of Mariah Carey, and ever since then I've grown more and more enamored and fascinated with her with each passing year, as I discover new depths to her discography to this very day. I pay attention to how the general public looks at artists I like. Being a music fan and being so tuned in to online opinions can kind of skew how you see an artist, to the point that it's easy to forget that the general public often views certain artists way differently than online communities. From what I gather, the general public's opinion of Mariah Carey is either Christmas lady or she's good for a throwback. But Mariah Carey is so much more than that. She may portray herself as a glamorous diva, but this is an artist who possesses an unprecedented level of talent and depth. I wish that a more popular consensus of Mariah Carey is that she is one of the most important artists of the last 40 years. When you really study Mariah's career and her stats, it's an almost objective fact. Almost every key artist in pop music that debuted since the mid to late 90s has, in some way, cited Mariah as an influence. Mariah Carey is truly a one-of-a-kind artist in more ways than one. She's technically the baby of her generation of musical peers, coming in 1990. Her musical equivalents like Whitney and Janet and Madonna were already well established by the time she came on the scene. She had to play catch-up and prove herself. Mind you, her debut single blocked Janet's most current single at the time from reaching number 1. 15 number 1 hits in just the first decade of your career is a pretty damn good job at proving yourself. But beyond numbers, it's the fact that after a mere 10 years, she was already radiating a level of influence and inspiration amongst up-and-coming artists that came after her. I say all of this to say that as we slowly lose our legends to the inevitable passage of time, I believe Mariah Carey deserves her flowers, her praise, and her good graces while she's still here to receive them. She truly is one of the last remnants of a category of classic music legends that have built the industry that we know and love to this very day. I believe the key quality that makes Mariah Carey such a fascinating artist is the fact that she is a pop star that is deceptively deep. At first glance, you may be led to believe that she's just another singer that ruled the charts for a while, then inevitably faded out. But her discography is so rich and so deep. The quality and strength of her artistry doesn't end with the singles and hits like many other artists. Mariah is arguably at her strongest on her album cuts. Her relevance has remained shockingly high throughout the years, and she's continued to deliver quality music all the way up to her most recent releases. The strength of Mariah Carey's stature in music history is the fact that she has consistently remained at a level of musical prowess and genius for such a long time. Her influence continues to be felt even to this very day. She's a once-in-a-lifetime talent and, quite frankly, a musical blueprint.